My daughter, when she was younger, she had this American Girl doll. And this American Girl doll, Jamila, it lived an amazing life, okay? It had a house. It had a bed. It had, it had everything. And it's like, yes, all of that was really cute and wonderful and fun, except for if we had an unexpected expense, a flat tire, a this or that, right? You're like all of a sudden scrambling. That is concerning.
T-minus 10 seconds.
Welcome to the Journey to Launch podcast with your host, Jamila Souffrant. As a money expert who walks her talk, she helps brave journeyers like you get out of debt, save, invest, and build real wealth. Join her on the journey to launch to financial freedom in
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey Journeyer, a quick note, you will be listening to a rewind episode. That means this episode was previously aired months or years ago. I have hundreds and hundreds of episodes of the podcast, and so I will be sometimes replaying my favorite conversations for you to maybe listen to the first time or re-listen to again. I want to give you a heads up about this episode to let you know what's going on, because maybe you looked at it and you said, wow, this is a little shorter than Jamila's typical episodes. And I want to tell you why, but also why you still should listen, because in this short amount of time, my guest today, Christine Platt, and I cover some topics that could change your life, okay? So one, let me tell you just a little bit more about Christine Platt. Christine Platt is a modern-day Renaissance woman, also known as the Afrominimalist. From serving as an advocate for policy reform to using the power of storytelling as a tool for social change, Christine's work reflects her practice of living with intention. She holds a BA in Africana Studies, MA in African American Studies, and a JD in General Law. Christine has written over 24 literary works for people of all ages. When she's not writing, she spends her time curating her 630 square foot home, chronicling her journey and encouraging others to live with more authenticity and intention. She most recently wrote the book, The Afrominimalist Guide to Living with Less. And she's radically re-envisioning minimalism for everyone. And I really did enjoy talking to Christine. There's so many similarities between Christine's entry into the minimalist movement and creating space for herself and people who are marginalized and look like her. And also, I feel like my journey into financial independence in the retire early space, the FIRE movement. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about what happened with Christine's episode. So Christine and I tried to record this conversation twice. The first time we started to record, 15 minutes in, the Wi-Fi, the whatever, the connection, it just was not working. So we decided to reschedule and do it another day. Then we recorded it this day. So what you'll hear is the second recording that Christine and I did. Now, the second recording was about an hour long, and it was amazing, as usual. But again, this last part of our interview, the audio, the sound was corrupted, and we couldn't use it. But we managed to salvage the first 25 minutes of our conversation. And let me tell you, in that first 25 minutes, we go there. If you want the episode show notes for this episode, go to journeytolaunch.com or click the description of wherever you're listening to this episode. In the show notes, you'll get the transcribed version of the conversation, the links that we mentioned, and so much more. Also, whether you are an OG journeyer or brand new to the podcast, I've created a free jumpstart guide to help you on your financial freedom journey. It includes the top episodes to listen to, stages to go through to reach financial freedom, resources, and so much more. You can go to journeytolaunch.com/jumpstart to get your guide right now. Okay, let's hop into the episode. Hey Journeyers, I have a special treat for you. I mean, every week is a special treat, but this is really special because this guest and I, we tried this before once. We tried to record this conversation, but God had other plans. And you know what? I have a story to tell Christine when we get into this about why I think that happened, or just how it benefited me that we had to delay this conversation. But I have the Afrominimalist on the podcast, Christine Platt. Hi, Christine.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
I can't wait to hear this story.
Okay, so a little backstory. So Christine and I started to record this podcast episode a couple weeks ago. We had some technical difficulties, so we got about like 15 minutes into the conversation, and it was so great. And I was like, okay, we'll just reschedule. But over that weekend, I was like, you know what? I need to clear out my closet. Like I was very inspired by reading your book and really knowing that like my closet was a hot mess, that I needed to throw things out. I've been delaying it for a while. And so it gave me the space to really like throw out and donate a lot of things in my closet. It looks so much better now. I feel so much better. So I was like, I can't wait to tell Christine this now when we have our conversation again.
It's so funny because, ever since the book came out, I'll get text messages from friends. It'll just be like 4 garbage bags or, or bins, or I'll receive DMs from people. And I love it. I mean, I love that so many people are being inspired, and I'm sure we'll get into today. I mean, our stuff extends beyond the price tag, right? Like there's just so much there. So I'm just really glad that you were inspired in that way. And I can't wait to finish our conversation because we were definitely on a roll.
Yes. Well, so one of the things that I did mention is when I first started reading your book, I was on the beach and I got really emotional, and I was like, I don't know if it was the margaritas or this part in your book where you say it's really upfront in the beginning, and it's like, for our ancestors, living with less is now our choice.
Yes.
And it really framed this for me because I know some of the pushback even in my own mind, or from other people when it talks about minimalism, especially for people of color, especially for Black people, is, does this mean we can't have things? And why? Like our ancestors, the people before us, were denied so many things. This is our time to have and to be. The choice factor is a big deal. So I want you to get into your story as the Afrominimalist, how you came to be this and what brought you to this place where you wrote a book about it and now almost kind of on leading your own movement within the movement that makes it more inclusive for people of color.
I think I started like most people in the sense that, you wake up one Saturday morning thinking about everything that you have to clean, looking at the piles of laundry, all the stuff that you have to do. And I was just like, this is just all too much. Like there has to be another way. And of course, whenever you search online about like how to simplify your life, how to be organized, like all these things about minimalism would come up. And so that Saturday, and it was actually about 5 years ago now, I decided that I was going to start my journey into minimalism, but I had no idea what I was getting into because mainstream media focuses so much on the aesthetics. And so I was focused on, I can't wait until my house is aesthetically minimalist, right? Like just clean lines and few things and a neutral color palette. And what I discovered on my journey was that, like I just said earlier, it's so much more than our things, right? And it led me to, ultimately I didn't end up marrying the aesthetic that I saw on Pinterest, and I hated it. It didn't feel like me. It didn't feel good. I missed colors. I missed fabrics and textures. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to create my own little version of minimalism. And Black folks, like to claim something as ours, we put Afro in front of it. So I was like, I'm the Afro-minimalist, And then I began sharing my journey online because I'm like, surely I'm not the only person out there. And first of all, I'm not the only Black minimalist. Let's just start there. Secondly, I know I'm not the only minimalist of color. I think Marie Kondo had like just come out, but she was like the only other person of color that was in the minimalist space. And then also I was like, you know what? I also want to just share this just in case there are any other people out there who may just be curious about a minimalist lifestyle, but wonder how does it kind of look when you do it your own way? And Jamila, I never expected it would become what it has become now. I mean, as you know, I write children's books. I work at the Anti-Racism Center at American University. I had a very full life, and this was just a way for me to share this aspect of my life on social media. And what ended up happening, it was just this following came, and it started with other minimalists who were like, I use color too. And why is the face of minimalists so aesthetically pleasing instead of focusing on the practice, which is really living with intention and being authentic. And my platform just grew and grew and grew. And then last summer, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I think I had just finished writing like my last children's book, and the world had slowed down, Jamila, and it was just such a beautiful time. And my agent said, I think this would be a good time to like work on your Afro-Minimalist book. Like, people are quarantined, they're sitting and dealing with their stuff for the first time, they can't escape it. And she was like, why don't we put a proposal together? And I put a proposal together, and the first editor we sent it to said, absolutely. And now here we are. So yes, I received the book deal, wrote the book. The book was published all in less a year, which I do not recommend to anyone, but I'm glad I did it.
That's fast according to, standard publishing, because things can take 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're usually on a 18-month cycle, but, even they saw the urgency in this message. And so I'm grateful, Jamila. I mean, and so now here I am, one of the few Black women practitioners in the minimalist space, just trying to spread the word. I mean, my book was written for everyone, but I really, have these special call outs for people of the African diaspora and other marginalized communities, because like you said, sitting there, looking at that quote in the beginning and getting emotional, we just have a very different relationship and, this history and generational things that we're carrying in regards to our things.
And what I love about when I was finding similarities between the minimalist movement and even the FIRE movement, the financial independent retire early movement, which I always say I have like one foot in that movement and one foot in just like life and personal finance in general, because it's the same thing. I knew that there were so many people in the space before I came into it that were doing great work and I learned from, but it was just something missing. There was no the connection of the story and the background, the nuances that they would not be able to pick up. I saw were missing. And I think it's so important for people to be inclusive, but it's hard when you don't have a reference point, where you don't have the lived experience. And so I think you in the forefront now, and I know that there are other people in the space that are people of color and Black people, like I just see more of it happening now and more people coming out with their own platforms and podcasts and blogs in both spaces, in the minimalist space and the FIRE movement and personal finance. I love it because we need representation and it matters.
Yeah, I mean, it really changes things. And it's so funny because I've heard from people of all races and ages, and, they'll say, I always liked the idea of simplicity and minimalism, but every time I would look at those photos, I couldn't do it. It was so barren, and like, I think there's something powerful about sharing our stories. And for those who are willing to, if it's the FIRE movement, really talk about your finances. For me, it's the minimalist movement and really talking about, let's get into like the psychology of ownership. Like, let's get into the heart and nuance of what we're doing, because you really have an opportunity to help someone aspire to a different life and also be a source of inspiration, which I think is so important. And like you said, these are considerations that a lot of other people don't make. If it's not their lived experience, it's not something that they're going to think about. But quite a few decluttering specialists who have said, I wish you can see the copy of my book. It's dog-eared, it's highlighted, it's tabbed, because these are considerations that I never, ever thought of making for my BIPOC clients, which I think is so powerful.
Hey, Journeyers, if you are loving this podcast, then you will love my book, Your Journey to Financial Freedom, a step-by-step guide to achieving wealth and happiness. I wrote this book for you. This book is for you if you want a clear and enjoyable path to having more money, options, and a rich life. This book is for you if you hate your commute and the fact that you need to seek approval or permission from a boss. I hated that when I worked. This book is for you if you weren't born into wealth, you didn't marry rich, or win the lottery, but you still want freedom. This book is for you if you're at a crossroads, a major decision or event is imminent. Maybe a career change, marriage, starting a family. Pressures are reaching a tipping point, and the discomfort and the desire for more can no longer be ignored. And this book is for you if you find yourself zoned out at meetings, looking out the window or daydreaming about the life you truly want. So go pick up your journey to financialfreedom.com so I can show you how to map out how to get from where you are today to where you ultimately want to be and enjoy the journey while you're on the path. Head over to yourjourneytofinancialfreedom.com to see where you can pick the book up. It's available on Amazon, bookshop.org, Barnes & Noble, your local bookstore, everywhere. Go to yourjourneytofinancialfreedom.com to get the book now. Something that I think is so complex, and I hope to also talk more about this and in my future book and just in general my content, because you just mentioned the nuance of ownership for Black people and marginalized groups. You have this in your book, and I've read this in other books that have really did a good job of really understanding our experience with ownership and the false sense of security that it can provide, because we've been denied so much in this country, coming from slaves, the descendants of slaves. And so we see ownership and stepping into wealth and having nice things, like that's a win. Like we want that, we celebrate that, but it could also be detrimental to building real wealth. Can we talk about that? Because that's one of the things where there are a lot of people talking now about, we deserve luxury, which I believe, we deserve nice things, which I believe, but I just think some of that is counterproductive to building real wealth. And it may be rooted, and you talk about this in the book, in still white supremacy and or this capitalist society that it's not really good for us, even though we're pretending, or it is packaged as if it is good for us. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, and I like to, one of the reasons I like to share on my platform so much is to show what you can still have a luxurious life. You can still buy things, right? I don't know where this sense of either or, sort of comes from, because you can have both, which is what I want to tell people. But you really want to understand that if all of your wealth and your resources are tied up in buying things, have the opportunity or the resources to build generational wealth, right? Our things are not going to, few things will build generational wealth, right? It's obviously very different if you're, let's say a collector of Rolexes or this or that, right? But it's still a consideration that the average person has to make. The person who is living paycheck to paycheck, right? And yes, your paycheck comes and you're like, gosh, I worked so hard. Oh, these last 2 weeks sucked. I want to buy thing, right? And then next thing you know, it's a week later and you're like, oh my God, I cannot wait until my next payday. That is concerning, right? The story that I like to share is when my daughter, when she was younger, she had this American Girl doll. And this American Girl doll, Jamila, it lived an amazing life, okay? It had a house. It had a bed. It had, it had everything. I remember even buying it like a tiny Christmas tree that we decorated with tiny ornaments.
Wow.
It had a violin because she played the violin, right? And it's like, yes, all of that was really cute and wonderful and fun, except for if we had an unexpected expense, a flat tire, a this or that, right? You're like all of a sudden scrambling. That is concerning. Yes, I could about that stuff. Right? I was working, I got paid and I could buy it, but those resources could have been better spent being saved, invested?
Right.
We have a choice to make. And oftentimes, to your point about, understanding whether am I buying into this capitalist structure and society, right? We have come to things and owning certain things and having certain things with the American dream, wealth. We have made it, right? And in reality, that is not what wealthy people do, right? And that is not how wealthy people get wealthy, especially when you're first generation, second generation, six-figure income earner. You don't have a generation of people who have told you, this is what you do. Here's how you invest in the land that we left for you. Here's how you invest. You see what I'm saying? You are literally starting from scratch. And instead of investing in American Girl doll house with all the things and all the stuff, figure out you can get some investment property. You know what I mean? Like, that's what
Right.
I want people to start to think about. And I think marginalized groups find themselves just in this very, very slippery slope of a place where we are just more prone to conspicuous consumption, right? Like, we're more prone to buy things because of the status it gives or the perceived status or wealth that it gives. We're more prone to looking at aspects of our childhood and finally having an opportunity to fulfill those unfulfilled wants, right? So many first gen folks grew up with, scarcity, food scarcity. There's so many things that play a role in our adult spending habits and behaviors. And if we're not careful and if we don't do that self inquiry and work to figure out what those are, we find ourselves looking up one day and we're 60, 70, and like, I have nothing. I have nothing to retire on. I have nothing to leave my children and grandchildren. And all those things that you bought all those years, they're long gone. They're gone.
Yeah. Yeah. And you say it in the book, outsourcing your sense of self-worth. And that can happen if we're not conscious of what we're doing. So I love that you were talking about this.
Yeah,
Now,
you have to be really careful. Mm-hmm.
When you talk about minimalism, how did you start your journey? So someone now listening was realizing, okay, maybe I do have too many things. I know this. I just haven't done anything about it. What started you on your path? Like, what were the steps you took so that someone listening now can begin to reimagine their life and their things?
Well, yeah. So first of all, they don't need to do what I did because I didn't have a guide. I wrote a guide. I wrote the guide that I wish that I would have had. And, I think the steps that I put in that book are what I did unknowingly, is acknowledging that you have more than you need, right? And going through that process, I was just like, you look around and you're like, I actually have a lot of stuff. Then you start pulling stuff out and you're like, why do I have? Right? Like, that why is the part that mainstream minimalism also left out. I started to do just a little deeper, like, when did I become a bargain shopper? Right? Like digging into those aspects of my childhood and past. And that acknowledgement for me was the first step. And that acknowledgement can be very emotional and painful, which is what led me to write step 2, which is forgiveness. I remember standing in front of my piles of things. I didn't have any guidance like, go in categories. Don't think you can do this in a weekend. Like, I didn't have any of that. So I just pulled be a weekend warrior. And then all of a sudden it was, look at all this stuff. There's no way you're going to get through it in one weekend. And I remember feeling very emotional and I cried. I was angry with myself. I was sad, like all these different things. Step 3 is when I felt that I could let go, right? Because I had worked through the acknowledgement. I had worked through the forgiveness.
I like that you're saying it takes a while too. So this is not something that you can do overnight, right? This is a process, an ongoing one. Okay, journeyers, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Christine. I saw so many similarities between her journey into minimalism and my journey into financial independence and just the movement itself. And I love how she was able to carve out a space in which she can now hold space for people who may not have felt included and represented otherwise. And it's amazing to see people stepping up and becoming the representation, becoming the thing that they wish to see in the world, creating the platform. I just love being able to have that conversation. And of course, living with less so we can have more. Okay. We have options to choose what we want, and we can choose less. And it doesn't mean that we are less, right? We are still deserving. We are still worthy, but we don't need to outsource our worthiness to things in order to prove our worth to other people. Don't forget, you can get the episode show notes for this episode by going to journeytolaunch.com or click the description of wherever you're listening to this. And you can still grab your Jumpstart guide for free to help you on your journey to financial freedom by going to journeytolaunch.com/jumpstart. If you want to support me and the podcast and love the free content and information that you get here, here are 4 ways that you can support me and the show. 1, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast wherever you listen, whether that's Apple Podcasts, that purple app on your phone, your Android device, YouTube, Spotify, wherever it is that you happen to listen, just subscribe so you are not missing an episode. And if you're happening to listen to this in Apple Podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe there. I appreciate and read every single review. Number 2, follow me on my social media accounts. I'm at Journey to Launch on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and I love interacting with journeyers there. 3, support and check out the sponsors of this show if you hear something that interests you. Sponsors are the main ways we keep the podcast lights on here, so show them some love for supporting your girl. 4, and last but not least, share this episode, this podcast with a friend or family member or coworker so that we can spread the message of Journey to Launch. All right, that's it. Until next week, keep on journeying, journeyers.